Welcome to the Wohasu Ripple Effect podcast, a global happiness series exploring the science and stories that shape our well-being. Hi, I'm your host, Elisa Juarez, and in this season, we're focusing on transitions, those inevitable life changes that challenge us, shape us, and open the door to new possibilities. Through conversations with expert coaches and thought leaders from the Wohasu community, we'll uncover practical tools, transformative insights, and inspirational personal stories to help you navigate change with clarity and joy. This podcast is part of the World Happiness Summit's mission to create a global ripple effect of positivity grounded in the latest research and the shared experiences of our vibrant community. Whether you're starting a new chapter, redefining your purpose, or searching for meaning in life shifts, this season offers strategies to help you thrive and find deeper fulfillment. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and let's create that ripple effect of happiness together. And in today's episode, Andrea Kopilak and I dive into the theme of transformation and resilience during life's transitions. We explore how community, self-awareness, and connection help us navigate uncertainty. Join us. Hello, and welcome to today's episode in our series of the World Happiness Summit Ripple Effect podcast. In this series, we have been exploring the topic of transformation. And today I have the honor of talking to one of our coaches from the 2024 Summit in London, Andrea Kopilak. Hello, welcome.
Hi, Elisa. Thank you so much for having me today.
I am super happy to have you on the podcast, and I am curious as to know where you're calling in from.
So I'm calling in from the United States in Connecticut.
Connecticut. Love it. Beautiful state, especially now in the fall. I'm sure you have beautiful winter foliage or fall foliage. Love it.
We do. The leaves have just fallen from the trees and are starting to be bare.
Aw, I love that time. I love fall. So if you guys are listening, yes, we're filming this in the fall. And Andrea and I actually had the chance of connecting at the summit in London. And I think this is a great example of how global our community really is. When we talk about Wohasu being a global community, this is a perfect proof point. We met in London. We are now in 2 different countries. I'm actually calling in from Colombia, from Medellin. And the ability to continue to stay connected and learn from each other, I think, is beautiful and one of the things that makes me most excited about the Wohasu community. So in our series on transitions, what we've been doing is talking to different coaches and facilitators from our community who are helping us understand different life transitions and different moments in transitions and helping us think about how to become more resilient and get through these moments in a way that is happy and healthy and thinking really clearly about our well-being during these moments. The really cool thing about this podcast is we get to have conversations of people who are actually putting into practice what we learn about at the summit on stage from researchers, professors, psychologists who are presenting the data. And then what we get to do in this conversation is digest it and learn how we can tangibly and practically put things into practice. All right, so let's get started. Andrea, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Elisa. So I am a positive psychology coach. I am certified through the International Coaching Federation at the ACC level. And I've also have a certification as a mentor coach. I'm thrilled to be working with clients to help them transition through uncertain times. I think one of the things that drives me most is the ability to help someone really get a sense of their way of being in a moment so that they can build self-awareness and grow either personally and or professionally.
So I love it. And I think what I want to get out of our conversation today is really thinking about how we can maybe build strategies or routines or habits around nurturing our well-being and resiliency when life feels uncertain. So when we think about transitions, they're often a moment of uncertainty. And I think that if we really understand how we can get through them, knowing full well they will happen, I think we will be better for it. And so right now, I'm through a big transition. I'm living in a different country. I'm going through a career transition, going through an age transition, right? So talking about midlife, just had a big milestone birthday. And I really would like to know from you how you help your clients really understand how to manage some of that stress and anxiety around the uncertainty of these transitions.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say happy birthday. And, the next thing I want to say is that I don't have all of the answers. Here, what I'll do is share my experience and what I've learned in the hopes that someone listening will hear something that resonates with them and then maybe adapt something so that it will fit their own needs. With my clients, what I try and do is help them think about the way they're showing up, the way they're being, the way they want to be, and what might be getting in their way. And I really like to work with people to see what strengths they have that can help them push through times of uncertainty when they need it.
So what would that maybe look like? So I've heard of like strengths-based leadership and like using our strengths in the workplace. How do you think about that on a personal level outside of work?
Yeah. So I can share a story around there. I had this experience in 1 year of my life that was quite filled with moments of uncertainty that brought me both positive energy and really negative energy. And when I look at the story, so it started with my car being stolen in October. And then fast forward to January, and I had this horrible experience of a friend and I were driving home late at night as someone followed us, and I was actually mugged in front of my apartment door. Fast forward to September of 2001, and I worked across the street from the World Trade Center. And that day, I wasn't there. My colleagues experienced this horrific event, and I am immensely grateful for not being there in a time in my life where I had so much uncertainty that I don't know, how that would have gone for me. So keep going. In December of that year, I lost my job. And when I look back at that time frame and think about, well, gosh, how did I do it? Right? How did I get from those moments of negative energy up to positive so that I could keep moving forward? A couple things come up for me. Number one was connection at that time, right? The ability for me to have a safe place where I could surround myself with family and people who love me, that was so important. Being with my friends, after 9/11, we went to the first Yankee game, and that was this experience of a whole entire stadium of people chanting USA over and over again. It was almost like the sound could uplift us. And I had such a profound sense of belonging and connection with my friends in that moment. It was like we had this renewed sense of purpose. We were all trying to go somewhere in a new direction together to transition through this time where no one knew how to make sense of what was going on. And then you asked me about strengths. So to go back to that, what I learned as I reflect on that as I reflect on that story is really, I was enrolled in a master's program at that time. And my strength of love of learning was present. I had the opportunity in September, that is when I started it, to take a step back. They offered us, if you don't want to move forward with the program, that's okay. And I was so determined. No, I need to do this. So this idea of tapping into my love of learning to help build resilience, as well as this idea of having a goal, a direction. I think of Michael Steger and his work on purpose. It was like my North Star. So it was meaningful for me to continue and pursue. And then the last thing I think of is my strength of gratitude that has come from not being there, and in a time in my life when, like I said, I just didn't think that I would have handled it in the best way that I could have. And so having support and realizing my strengths, I think those things really help in times that are really challenging.
So when you're talking about 9/11, I just got like full body goosebumps. That's incredible that you weren't there. I was it was my first week of college, and I was in Rhode Island, and I never had been so close to you. I hadn't been to New York ever. I'm from Miami. And so hearing that story, I remember hearing so many like friends mention something told me not to go to work today, or that's so scary. So thank you for sharing. But what you just said with the Yankees game and the chanting of the USA, USA, and bringing a sense of belonging, that also brought up something for me right now with our recent elections in the United States. And that chant feels a little different to me right now. I think right now, individually and as a country, there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think it's going to be a transition, agnostic of like who your vote is or whatever, if you're happy about the election or not. It'll still be a transition and a change as a country. Have you thought about like what this is going to look like, or are there maybe tools or ideas that maybe we can put into practice to help strengthen our resiliency through this time of political transitions?
Yeah, it is such an uncertain time right now. And I think not only in this country, but around the world.
Yeah.
And when I think about, how do we move forward through that with resilience and using our strengths, what comes up for me is, and this is something that I really work to do with clients, is to really build self-awareness so that we can notice in a moment, how do I feel, right? What's coming up for me? And it's a choice, right? To recognize and notice how I feel, but then, decide what is it that I need, and how can I move forward in a way that reflects who I want to be in a moment. And then that requires maybe that we think about, well, what's really important to us? What are our values? And what would help us align with those values? Those are just some things I know I am.
I am too. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. And like, as we mentioned, this is the fall. So we are, this is post the 2024 US election is when we're having this recording, and just before the holiday season. And I'm maybe just bombarded a lot through what I'm seeing on social media and hearing from friends of how this transition will impact their holiday season, right? Because exactly what you're saying, disalignment of values within family units. And I worry about that, right? I worry about what that means for us as a society if our conversations around the dinner table are not going to be happening because our alignment to our values is so polar opposite. And that just seems like a very hard way as a country, as a society, to go through this next transition, right? Like, I'm a little worried about that as just as an overall society.
I can relate. And I, something that comes up for me is this idea of, if we could look into our own eyes and see our life story and see everything that has shaped who we are today, what would change about the way we see ourselves? And what would change about, the way we see other people if we were able to look them in the eyes and see the life story that has shaped who they are in that moment? How can we be curious about where someone's coming from and why they see the world the way they see the world? It's not easy to do. And I'd be lying if I said that I'm not looking forward to some conversations, and setting some boundaries at the dinner table at Thanksgiving. But I think trying to remember that we're all people and we're all human beings with feelings, and the way we make sense of our experience or not matters.
So I love that idea of boundaries. I think that's a great reminder that we can still love each other and be around each other and not necessarily have to talk about things that might divide us. And reminding ourselves why we are together, because we value family. That is the value, and that's why we're here, right? I think that's a good reminder. Is there something that you maybe do or recommend that we do when we're having these moments of anxiety or stress during a transition to bring us back, to ground us, to remember why we do what we do, so that we don't maybe spiral?
Yeah. I think a question that we can all ask ourselves in times of uncertainty or when we notice that we're spiraling is what has worked well for me in the past? What gets my energy up? What gives me a sense of hope when I feel uncertain? And then tap into what we know works, because honestly, what works for me might not work for you, right? I love to run on the beach, but you might hate running. So it's really important.
I really like the idea of running on the beach. I think this is beautiful, romantic image of the sun rising and the waves and gracefully jogging. That is not my reality. I will paddleboard next to you though. That I'll do.
Yeah. And so it's really, again, comes back to really being willing to be introspective and get to know what makes you tick, what gives you positive energy, what lights you up, and then surrounding yourself around people who also do the same. It's contagious when you're with someone who has great energy. I think you have great energy.
It's so much fun. Yeah. I feel like when I started thinking about this conversation, I wasn't expecting to go into 9/11 and then politics and then Thanksgiving conversations of misalignment to values. But I think it's a good reminder. And I think something that you're helping me kind of reframe for myself is understanding and going back to the strengths in the moment of these uncertainties and these changes. And what is it that I can bring to the table, and what are my values? But I think sometimes that activity takes some time, right, to really identify and articulate. Is that something identifying one's values and one's strengths? Is that something that you do with your clients, and how maybe you give us, if the answer is yes, then is there a sneak preview of how our audience or our listeners might start thinking about that and framing that for themselves? So values and strengths.
Depending on how interested the client is, I will offer an assessment, a free assessment that they can do, the VIA character strengths assessment. There are a few of them. There's also the strengths profile assessment. But depending on how interested the client is, I'll offer an invitation for them to take the VIA. And I'll also offer the ability to just have conversations and talk about strengths. So I work to help people spot their strengths, right? Noticing when does someone have this uptick in energy? When is it, is there a trait that is so much a part of who they are and their identity that shows up, something that's natural to them, right? And so I also offer to just have conversations about strengths, so that if someone is expressing an uncertain time that they're going through, I may ask them, well, what strength can you tap into that can help you move forward in just a small way?
So as you're speaking, I've done a lot. I don't think I've done the VIA or the VIA, but I've done the Strengths Finders. And one of the things that's coming to mind, like I think I am really getting stuck on this Thanksgiving dinner table, not literally, but figuratively. I think I have, like, I really am interested in people and their ideas. And so I think that is something that I am going to call more to understand really people's perspectives and why. I really believe in having a space of belonging and a space of inclusion. And to have that, you do need to rely on listening and actively paying attention to people's nuanced ideas and their values and their perspective. And honestly, I think for me, it was like this moment of assumptions. And I think now I'm trying to put those aside to really understand what people's perspectives are and ideas. So it's a good reminder for me. So thank you for that. I think that's something I'm going to leverage. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd be curious, is there a strength that you have that you can naturally tap into in those moments at the dinner table where you feel some resistance?
I mean, I think it's the listening piece, right? So really making space and inviting other people to not necessarily have their own preconceived assumptions and judgments, right? I think that I like doing that, and I like having that, like the more diplomatic approach. I think that's something that I would like to bring to the table. And to clarify, if my parents ever listen to this podcast, there's not literally our dinner table that we have this point of tension, but I think it's more figuratively in the grand scheme of life and circles that I'm in. And I think also circles that I have decided not to be part of. And now I'm questioning, is that really the smartest idea? I don't think so. I don't think that really brings about that level of inclusion and belonging for others or opens the door for curiosity and conversation. So if I can't be a bridge, then I can't expect other people to be a bridge. So
really insightful.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm working this through in my mind. Is there? I think at the foundation of it, though, is those connections, right? Authentically wanting to build those connections and maintain those connections. And you had mentioned earlier when you had the event for both the mugging, which sounds terribly scary, as well as 9/11, that you relied really on your relationships and your family and friends. What are there other strategies or other ideas that you can maybe walk us through for people who are going through moments of transitions with a lot of uncertainty and they maybe don't feel comfortable reaching out to friends or family?
Yeah, I think, I worked with a therapist at that time. So I realized that one of the ways I needed to manage my own anxiety was to exercise. It was so important. And it really helped me during that time. And it's a lesson I move forward. And then, fast forward way to COVID when we're there in that place, I was working with a coach then. And one of the things she helped me realize is that checking in on our basic needs is really profound in terms of getting us to a place where we're grounded and we can move forward, right? And so our basic needs, they might look different for everyone. I happen to know that mine include balancing, moving, and being still, right? as well as connection to others. If it's Thursday and I haven't had a coffee or a really meaningful conversation with a friend, I can feel that in the way I show up. And so I need to say when I'm not showing up in the way I want, what's going on for me? Are my basic needs being met? And then the other three are like, am I eating well? Am I drinking enough water? And am I getting sleep, which I always struggle with? But just checking in. Yeah, how am I doing? And what do I, again, coming back to that idea of what do I need in this moment? It can be helpful.
I feel like though, when I'm going through something like that, I forget to have that check-in. So like maybe I can automate like food. I can do that, or sleep. Like I can do those things. But I think I forget to check in. And like I think you get into the routine of go, 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 and I'm not sure, and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then the day is done. And I maybe don't necessarily feel that I've either done my best during the day or done everything I wanted to do. I almost feel like that checking in is a luxury, and I don't think it should be. Yeah, I don't know.
If we were coaching, I would say, well, what might you need, right? To be able to check in with yourself. And because we're not coaching, I can offer you. What I do is I actually create a little list, and I put it on the wall. And that is my reminder. I mean, during COVID, that I literally had basic needs, and I wrote them out. And they were on the wall, like I used to do for my kids when they were little, and I wanted to make sure they remembered things before they left the house, or that works for me.
I love that. So it's a good visual, like a good.
Yeah. So I would offer, what might remind you, anybody listening out there, what might remind you to check in with yourself, so that, when life is happening and you're busy and all over the place, that you can remember to come back to what it is you need in a moment or in a week.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So I feel like we've covered a few different topics of transition, so managing stress and uncertainty during moments of transition, going back to our strengths and our values, grounding ourselves in that and how we show up and leverage them during these moments of transition, if we feel uncertain or unsure. I love the idea of reminding ourselves of our basic needs, taking care of ourselves. And I really like the idea of a visual. I have a 4-year-old, so we definitely have charts on our refrigerator to remind us to do basic needs, right? Like, did we put our pajamas on? Did we brush our teeth, right? So I think that's a good reminder to maybe add something on, like, just take a pause, like a good visual on the refrigerator door or on my laptop, something like pause. How are you feeling? Checking in. What do you need to be whole, right? That's a great idea. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today about this topic?
What came up for me as you were talking is there's also an app, and I'm pretty sure it's free, that Mark Brackett has, I believe, created. It's just called, what's it called? I think he wrote the book Permission to Feel, and I think that the app is, it just questions, how do you feel in a moment, and it'll kind of pop up and let you respond.
I love that.
I can't think of the name of it
We'll look it up, and we will put it in the comments or the description below. If you're interested, we'll make sure we capture that as a resource. I love that. It's a good one for people who are very much on their phones or use their phone all the time. It's a good visual reminder. I like that. All right, we'll put it in the description below.
And something that I like to have a reminder around the house is just that I can handle this.
Ooh,
like,
good one.
Just trusting myself, trusting that I've got this. I have a reminder in my office. I have a reminder in my drawer when I get dressed every morning. I open my drawer and it says, I can handle this. It's just a little positive self-talk that encourages me and reminds me of where I've been and the possibility of where I can go.
Love it. All right, so I ask all of our guests one fun question. And for you, is there maybe a quote or a mantra that you go to that lifts your spirits, especially in moments of uncertainty?
that would be it. It's that I can handle
I got
this.
it. I love it. I can handle it. All right, I got it. I can handle it. I can handle it. I can handle it. I love this conversation. Thank you for the moments of reflection. I have some thinking to do, so I appreciate that. Is there a way that we can get a hold of you if any of our listeners wanted to learn more about what you do and the services that you offer? How would we find you?
Yeah. So I am on LinkedIn. I'm Andrea Garin, Garin Kopilak, Kopilak. And also I have a website. My company is Connect2Flourish Coaching. I realized I didn't even mention that.
Yeah, that would have been a good thing.
I have a website.
We will put that also down below.
And that is just www.connect2flourish.com. And my email is just Andrea@C2Fcoach.com.
Sounds good. I feel like there's a lot that we could have talked about in terms of flourishing, maybe for a possible next episode. I love that topic, like not just being resilient, but flourishing and where you're at. I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time today. I love this conversation on transitions through uncertainties, transitions during uncertainties. And I want to let all of our listeners know, if you're interested in like this kind of content and want more of it, come join us in Miami in March of 2025, Miami Beach to be exact, and March 15th and 16th. Where we get together, our global community gets together, so we will continue to learn from each other, build community, and learn about the latest research on positive psychology, happiness, and well-being. It's a super fun event. Please consider joining us and stay tuned for more episodes on the Oahu Ripple Effect. Thank you very much. Ciao. I had so much fun having this conversation with Andrea and really thinking about how transformation is a key theme in navigating life transitions. Here are a few takeaways that I got out of our conversation. Let me know in the comments below what you took away. So, number one, I think building resilience really involves understanding and leveraging your personal strengths. I am a huge fan of strengths finders, and so I definitely leverage my strengths when I'm thinking about any decision or any situation that I'm in. I also really appreciated how she talked about self-awareness and helping to recognize feelings and needs. And I also really liked the fact that she talked a lot about gratitude and how that can enhance our resilience. Definitely thinking about how we engage in activities that uplift our energy is really important, and checking in with our basic needs is absolutely essential for our overall well-being. So these are a few of the takeaways that I got from our conversation. Let me know again what you took away in the comments below. Feel free to share this with somebody in your network who might need an extra boost in thinking about life transitions, and subscribe to our channel for more podcast episodes such as this one. Thanks again for tuning in. Ciao. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Oahu Ripple Effect podcast. As we navigate life's transitions together, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you? What's one small step that you will take towards greater happiness and well-being? Share your reflections and join the conversation in the comments below. Join us at Oahu 2025 in Miami, March 15th and 16th, to connect with a global community, dive into the latest research on happiness and well-being, and learn from world-class experts on happiness and social impact. It's a unique opportunity to come together, share experiences, and spark ideas that inspire positive change. Oh, and as a thank you for being part of our podcast community, you get to enjoy an exclusive 10% off your tickets with the code RIPPLE at checkout. That's RIPPLE. Visit worldhappinesssummit.com to learn more and reserve your spot today. We look forward to seeing you there and continuing this journey of creating a ripple effect of happiness and purpose. See you soon.